Welcome back to Utah Trikes. When you're riding a trike, or any vehicle really, you always want to have a way to stop. Hurtling down a hill going 30 miles per hour without a way to stop yourself is a bit too treacherous, for me at least, so thank goodness we have brakes. In today's video, we'll be discussing the great technological advancement that is brakes, and all the different types you can put on your trike. We'll also be discussing rear wheel brakes and all the different kinds, as well as how you can utilize a parking brake on your trike. Before we get into that, if you're into all things trikes and cycling in general, make sure to subscribe to our channel. From in-depth reviews on all kinds of trikes to brand new trike releases, we have it all, so make sure to stick around. We've gotten lots of questions through the years about what types of brakes we offer, which brakes are better for certain situations, and questions on parking brakes. So I thought we could break these things down in this video and give you everything you need to know about brakes. In this video, we'll go over the different types of brakes and what they're used for and how they work. So let's learn about some brakes. Brakes on trikes work like they would on any other vehicle. Brakes make it so you can stop when you need to. This makes them the most important part of the trike. Because brakes are so important, it's vital that you get the best brakes possible for the type of trikes that you have. It's also important to keep those brakes in good working order. If your car was having trouble braking, you would make it a priority to fix the brakes, and the same should go for any other type of moving vehicle. On a tadpole trike, you'll encounter 4 styles of brakes: hydraulic disc, drums, mechanical disc, and rims. Each of these brakes function in different ways and utilize their own style of braking. First, we will start with the rim brakes. Rim brakes are a very common option among cheap bicycles, but for trikes, they aren't that common, at least here at Utah Trikes. When they're used, they are best utilized by a trike system that more resembles a standard bike fork for the front wheel. That would include our Delta platform trikes. If your tadpole trike has rim brakes, they will only be installed on the rear wheel and are primarily used as a parking brake. These are great for holding your trike still while parked or keeping it in place while you're getting in and out. The reason they are so uncommon on trikes is because they are the least practical option for braking on a trike. Trying to mount the rim brakes is a little difficult on an open wheel vehicle like, say, a tadpole trike. The biggest drawback of rim brakes is that they will wear down the rim over time, especially if there's any contamination between the brake and the rim. As such, you will need to replace a wheel much sooner than you would using a different style of brake. And not to mention that if your wheel is out of alignment, this will significantly reduce braking effectiveness while using rim brakes. Now onto disc brakes, which are the most common braking options for the trikes that we carry. Disc brakes are most often found on the 2 front wheels of a recumbent trike and can be found mounted on all 3 wheels. Similar to rim brakes, disc brakes use a clamping style to brake, but instead of on the larger rim of the tire, it applies its clamping force to a brake rotor attached to the side of the wheel's hub. Having the clamp be on a smaller part of the wheel and closer to the center of the hub allows for much more effective stopping power and much less wear on essential parts of your trike's wheel assemblies. Because of this different positioning, they are much better at providing continuously effective stopping power while going downhill, whereas drum brakes will fade over time. And compared to drum brakes, disc brakes are a lot easier to replace, where with a drum brake you will have to disassemble the wheel's hub to get the worn out parts. Mechanical disc brakes are great in many ways, but nothing is perfect. One of the disc brakes' greatest weaknesses is noise. If the rotor or brake pads are not in alignment or debris is caught within the clamping mechanism, then you will hear a repeated scraping noise anytime you hit your brakes. This sound can range from just a light squeak that can easily be ignored to the wail of a banshee, which, as you can imagine, isn't that pleasant. If you do hear some squeaking or squealing from your disc brake while riding, you may have to realign your brakes or clean out contaminants either on the rotor or the brake pads. For cleaning the squeak out of your brake pads, you'll want to scrub down both components with isopropyl alcohol and wipe them down with a clean rag. If you continue to hear squealing, you may need to sand down the brake pads a little bit, and if the squealing continues beyond this point, you may need to replace your rotor or brake pads. Next up is hydraulic disc brakes, which are a common brake upgrade that we provide on trikes that come with disc brakes. It can also be found on all of our Revolution E-quads and Not a Wheelchair rigs. These are often an upgrade on trikes because hydraulic brakes are very similar to the mechanical disc brakes. Both brake options utilize a brake clamp onto the rotor, but it's their function between the hand and the caliper that has such a big difference. Mechanical disc brakes use a braided wire system connected to the brake levers. This limits brake power to how much grip strength you can apply to the levers, and if the cable is exposed to water, they can easily rust and snap, causing brake failure. Whereas a hydraulic disc brake uses a sealed hydraulic fluid system that greatly increases braking power. not limiting you to how hard you can squeeze. They're also much more sensitive than other brakes, so stopping at a short distance is much easier if you need to be hitting the brakes quickly. Some drawbacks to hydraulic brakes is that using hydraulic fluid, there is a rare chance that your brake system can leak fluid and need some maintenance. You also need to stay aware of colder weather. In extreme freezing temperatures, the hydraulic brake fluid of the brakes can freeze and cause complications in braking power. But we're talking in the negative degrees Fahrenheit. Now lastly, we have drum brakes. The main draw of drum brakes is the convenience of less maintenance and much quieter, almost silent braking. We don't have many drum brake options here, but when they are added, they will almost always be located on the front two wheels of the trike. The big drawbacks of drum brakes seem to arise when you are doing intense downhill riding or constant intense braking. Drum brakes will overheat and lose their effectiveness or fade through constant application. So pumping your brakes is almost a necessity for a drum brake setup. And when it comes to maintenance, you will have a lengthy process to fix or replace any worn out parts ahead of you. Now that we have broken down each brake type, let's talk about rear brakes and why most trikes don't have them. Most recumbent trikes will only have brakes on the two front wheels. Each will be controlled independently. The left brake lever for the left wheel and the right brake lever for the right wheel. This is similar to your standard bike where each brake lever correlates to one wheel or the other. Unlike a bike though, a rear wheel brake can cause more problems than benefits while riding. If your rear wheel locks while braking, this can lead to many different steering issues that can easily result in losing control of your trike. Many of the brands that we carry do not come with rear brakes, and when they do, they're only used as a parking brake option and not tied to either of the two brake levers. Out of the trikes that we carry, ICE and HP have rear parking brake options, while Trike 700 comes with a rear parking brake from the factory. When rear brakes are added, the friction lever is usually placed under the seat on the left side. It's not as easily accessible when riding, but it can be easily engaged once parked, and some people even use its multiple levels of brake power to apply light braking while going downhill to add a little more stopping power. It should be noted, though, that its assistance is minimal and shouldn't be depended on to stop your trike. That said, there are a few types of parking brakes that are worth considering. The first of these options is a brake strap. This is not necessarily an extra rear brake option, but instead just utilizes your front two brakes. This is the cheapest option of the parking brake, as it is just a Velcro strap that wraps around the handle and the brake lever. When it's tightened sufficiently, the constricting force of the strap will act as a parking brake. Then we have the dial parking brake. This is a rear parking brake controlled and activated by a friction lever, normally located near the base of the seat or mounted on the handlebars. All you need to do is set it and leave it. The dial brake lever will only be used on a rear-mounted brake and is primarily used as a parking brake. Some people may use it to add resistance on a downhill ride, but we would not recommend depending on this kind of setup as a means of consistent braking. They don't apply consistent braking while moving, and dials are known to loosen themselves at times. The most common option of parking brake is locking brake levers. These are our favorite style of parking brake, and our customers seem to agree. The locking brake levers are usually just on the two front wheels of a trike for trikes with no rear brake. And these pins work when the lever is fully depressed and the locking pin located on the side of the brake is pushed in. To lock these kinds of brakes, you will pull the brake lever, push in the pin, and release the lever while holding the pin. To disengage the lock, simply pull the brake lever again to allow the pin to spring back out. There is also the option for a dual pull locking brake lever. This is the same process, but it'll be much more difficult to apply as there's two cables going into one lever instead of the tension of a single cable. This will require a bit more grip strength, and many customers report having a hard time when getting the pin in with the added tension. So many customers with dual pull levers resort to using the brake strap mentioned before, and they work just fine. Now that all the differences of brake types have been discussed, let's talk about brake application. For beginners, let's talk about how to brake effectively and for maximum safety and comfort. When braking, you'll want to apply equal amounts of pressure to both brakes to keep you from being pulled in one direction. If you pull harder on your left brake lever rather than your right brake lever, you will steer to the left. This can result in difficulty steering and stability issues. If one hand is weaker than the other and you can't confidently apply the same amount of pressure to both brakes, we do have the option of a dual pull brake lever that can be added custom to your trike. A dual brake lever is when both brakes are connected to one lever. You'll want this lever to be on the side with your stronger hand. When applying your brakes, you will also want to apply gradual force. Keeping your braking smooth and calculated will prevent any sudden stops or riding mishaps. Before we wrap up this video, it's important to mention that for any type of braking style that you may want, we can add it custom to your trike build. We here at Utah Trikes pride ourselves in being able to customize any trike to make it all the more specialized for you and your riding style. If you want a custom brake upgrade, you can inquire about this addition with your build, or if you have any questions, email us at trikes@utahtrikes.com. And that's everything you need to know about brake options for recumbent trikes. With so many options for brakes, it can get a bit overwhelming choosing the right brakes for you and your riding style. So we hope that breaking all of their categories down for you was helpful. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like down below. And if you want to see more content like this, as well as anything and everything about trikes, make sure to subscribe. If you have any more questions about brake options or what might be the best for you, leave a comment down below or reach out to us over email at trikes@utahtrikes.com. Now, with that, remember to relax, spin fast, and ride trikes. If your wheel is out of alignment, this will significantly reduce braking effectiveness. The left brake lever for the left wheel and the right breaker for the right breaker. And if you want to see more content like this, no. I could feel a burp coming on as I was finishing.
I don't want to see any more content like this. Stop.
It's like I just want to get through this line and then I can feel it rising. Harold loves to answer your emails. He really loves them.
He does.
He eats that stuff up. Weeba wabba dooba. That's the video done gritty.